we are so excited and happy to be partnering with the Science Center. We've been, I think now, Emma, I think 2 years or so, we've been partnering, providing sensory-friendly Saturdays the first Saturday of each month. And of course, prior to COVID, we would do this in the center, at the Science Center, I should say, and we would have a wide variety of activities, workshops, such as we're doing this morning, throughout the Science Center, making the Science Center just, that much more inclusive for all families, regardless of their need, and a really great way for those of you who might find, attending the Science Center daunting. It's a really sort of supportive and safe way to try out the Science Center, allowing you to, become more comfortable and try out other things on other days, and not just on that first Saturday of the month. And we're excited to be able to continue doing that, even though COVID has forced us to sort of close our doors, both at Geneva Center and at the Science Center. We're excited to bring you a virtual version, continuing on with the first Saturday of each month. So here we are this month doing Oobleck and talking about positive parenting, as Emma mentioned.
Okay, I guess I'll start off because we usually start with the activity. So, you guys can get started and your kids can play while Shelly talks, or you can play too, because I keep touching the Oobleck, even though I have to go wash my hands so that I can type on my computer after each time. But Oobleck is one of my favorite crafts, and I especially love it for Sensory Friendly Saturday because it's a really unique sensation. Oobleck is something called a non-Newtonian fluid, a fancy word that just means that it's not really a liquid or a solid. It's kind of both, depending on how much you're touching it, how hard you're touching it. If you're being soft, it'll be harder or softer. It sounds complicated, but all it takes to make is some cornstarch and water. I've also added food coloring to mine to make it a little more special, but you don't have to. This is a messier craft, so it's a good idea to have your sleeves rolled up. And if you have like a placemat or like a craft tablecloth, anything like that, it's a good idea to have it handy. If not, it cleans up really easy. This is something that I like to use my hands for, but you definitely don't have to. You can do everything that I might be using my hands for with a spoon, or you can also use some gloves. Here is some Oobleck that I made yesterday. It's hard to see from this angle, which is why I'm going to be switching to another camera in a second. But it's gooey, it's exciting, and it's easy to make at home. I'm going to switch, so bye-bye. Okay, hopefully you guys are still with me. I'm here sitting on the floor now, but for you guys it might go better at a table. And I have a nice fresh container. I'm going to put in some cornstarch. Normally you want to use about half as much water as you do cornstarch, but it's easiest to put the cornstarch in and add water slowly. I'm not going to measure because this really isn't an experiment where it's important to have the proper ratios and measurements. This is a good idea to experiment and to have fun. There. So there's some cornstarch. And I already made some pink Oobleck. So I think I want my next Oobleck to be, well, actually, I've got pink. I made some green yesterday too. So maybe I will do blue so that I have the Science Center colors, red, green, and blue. Instead of adding my blue food coloring straight to the cornstarch, I'm going to add it to the water. This does make it a little more messy because if you tip the whole glass of water, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But it makes it a lot easier to get the color mixed into the Oobleck. Because we want to add the Oobleck a little bit at a time, it's a good idea to use a spoon or some careful pouring to mix the Oobleck into the cornstarch. This is a good opportunity to practice your eye-hand coordination and your muscle control. Put in some water, mix it up. You can see it's starting to get a little bit gooey, but we definitely need more. Get some more water, mix it up. Starting to get more gooey. You can see it's kind of starting to form chunks a little bit. I put in a couple spoonfuls. Maybe I'll use my hand a little bit. I like to touch the Oobleck, but you don't have to. Keep spooning in some water as I mix it up. And you can see it looks pretty liquidy, but I'm able to pick up chunks. And after I pick them up, they go back to being a liquid. But if I poke it, it's hard. Actually, I might have enough water now. Let's see. Mix it all in, use your fingers. It's hard to mix because when you grab it, when you use hard motions, it turns into a solid. So if I squeeze it, like I have a little rock. If I roll it in my hand, I can make it into a ball like Play-Doh. But then when I stop, it goes back to being a liquid. Have you guys ever seen anything like this in nature? The one thing that I think of, if you guys have ever been, to the beach or to the lake or something like that, when there's the sand where the water is going over, if you step in it, your footprints disappear really quickly. And if you step in it, you step and then you sink into the water, or you sink into the sand. It's kind of like that. And that's all you have to do to make Oobleck. It's fun to play with. You can also, I like to pour it back and forth, and you can see eventually it'll start to make little humps in the middle, or little spots where it's starting to form solid parts. I'm going to go back over to Shelly, and she can talk more about positive parenting. Hopefully you guys will enjoy experimenting with your Oobleck in the meantime. When Shelly's done, I want to hear what you guys are doing, so don't be afraid to shout out in the comments. Back to you, Shelly.
Thank you, Emma. I know definitely from our days when we were doing this back at the Science Center, and sometimes I had my kids with me, Oobleck is definitely one of their favorites. So it's a good one to try out at home. But welcome again, everyone. This morning, I'm going to be talking a little bit around some positive parenting strategies. Of course, at the Geneva Center for Autism, we work with a lot of families on a daily basis, helping them and teaching them new strategies to help their children learn new skills. And sometimes that can be overwhelming and a lot to take in and a lot to do on top of all the other things of everyday life. And of course, even now with everything going on in our world, it can be definitely a lot. And so I like to talk about this because I like to remind parents of some really simple, hopefully simple strategies that you can use at home to maintain some positive parenting techniques, not just for your kids, but also some positive techniques for yourself to keep yourself grounded and level-headed and mindful of our own sort of parenting strategies, and to be gentle with ourselves as we parent our kiddos at home. And so as you can see down the side, I've used the word praise as a bit of an acronym to remind ourselves of some of the strategies I'm going to be talking about. And I chose that intentionally because if anyone is familiar with the Geneva Center, we do use, our clinicians use applied behavior analysis is what all of our teaching that we do and our therapies that we do is grounded in applied behavior analysis. You might have heard the term ABA. That's what it stands for. And definitely positive reinforcement is a huge piece of that. And so we know the behaviors that we reinforce or behaviors that you give praise for in the future, those behaviors are more likely to occur if they've been reinforced or praised in the past. And so this is, things like if you tell your child to come here, and they actually do, they come across the room and they come to you, and you say, oh, great job, good job for coming here. That's giving positive reinforcements. Or if you give a thumbs up or even a smile, that piece of praise, whether it's tangible, whether it's social, that occurs right after the behavior that you're looking for has happened. We know, again, as I said, in the future, in a similar situation, that behavior is more likely to occur. So praise, reinforcement, really, really important when you think about some of your parenting strategies at home. So I'll go through each of them one by one. If you have questions, please do put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them as we go along or at the end. So the P of praise is practice. And as you can see there, I said, make time to practice new skills. Again, especially if you have a child with autism, and whether it's a young child or an older child, and even an adult child at home that you're working with, they're learning new things all the time. And I think the big piece of ensuring that they do learn these skills is giving them enough time to practice. And that sometimes, depending on the skill, depending on your child, does not mean you practice every single day, but to make some time to practice, whether that's something you do daily, something you do weekly, monthly, again, depending on your circumstance and what makes sense, but making room to practice, because we know that the more they can practice a particular skill, the better they'll become at it. And then R is for routine, trying to create routines in the day. And I love this as a parent myself. Routines really help our day become more predictable. And I think, not just for us as parents, but also for our kids that we're using this with, that the more predictable our day is, it tends to go a little bit smoother. If your child is really excited about going to the park and you've mentioned, yes, today we're going to go to the park, for some kids who don't have a good concept of time, or they're unsure of when in the day we're going to go to the park, and they keep asking you, one example is if you had a little visual schedule up, where the kids can see, and they see we're going to wake up, we're going to then have breakfast, then we're going to go to the library. I'm sort of making this up, and then after the library we're going to the park. It gives them a sense of, okay, yes, the park, which is my favorite thing or something I really enjoy doing, it is coming up, but we're going to have to do some other things before we get to the park. So just creates a nice routine. It creates a bit of predictability, which is not only good for our kids, but I said also good for us as parents, as we're juggling many things. That schedule can kind of remind us of the flow of our day. So nice to create a good routine. Attend to positive behavior. So that's that sort of catch them being good. Sort of the real, important piece of all of this is why, again, going back to why I use the word praise as the acronym. We really want to make sure that when our kids are doing positive behaviors or doing what we've asked them to do, that we give them that praise, that we provide attention as soon as that behavior it was occurring. So that sort of catch them being good. I use that because sometimes I hear that expression a lot. I know it can be challenging. I know as a parent of multiple kids at home myself, sometimes when they are doing really well and they're playing together really nicely, or they're just doing what they should be doing, sometimes, I hear parents have said to me, well, I don't want to interrupt a good thing, because we know sometimes just to interrupt to say good job, or to give them that thumbs up or that big smile of acknowledgement, sometimes that interruption, the play then goes a whole other direction. But often I tell parents it's worth it. It's worth interrupting and letting them know that they're doing a good job. Again, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be just a thumbs up, a smile, a pat on the back. If they're doing something, a quiet activity, a hug, anything to let them know that what they're doing right now is what you want to see them doing more of in the future. The I of praise, that's for involvement. So getting your kids involved. I have here, you can get them involved in household chores, make it fun, make it like a game. Even when they're younger, you can have them, for example, if you're doing laundry, you've got a laundry bin, tossing the socks in and out of the bin, kind of like a little, game of basketball, using the socks as a ball, or taking things out of the dryer. If they're able to help set with the table, whether that's just taking a bunch of cutlery and just setting it on the table, they may not know how to set it out at each spot. But just getting them involved in day-to-day chores is a really great way to teach your child new skills, while also just continuing with the everyday activities of the household. So you don't necessarily have to set aside a specific time, but get them involved in things that would be happening in the home anyway. Involvement also includes, things like I talk about reinforcement. We know our kids best, and we might make some assumptions like, yeah, my kids love stickers, or I know they really love Thomas the Train, or they love the color red, or things like that. And when we're thinking about reinforcement, we might use that knowledge that we know about our kids to make some guesses about what their reinforcement should be. But also get them involved at this stage. Ask them, what do you want as reinforcement? So, get their opinion, their ideas. If you're, purchasing something at a store, if you're able to take them with you, and they can see the options and point out perhaps something that looks exciting to them, because really the reinforcer has to be motivating for them. So get them involved in things within your household, creating new rules. If you're creating rules or routines, when do you want to go to the park? Before we go to the library, after we go to the library? So I think the more we can get our kids involved, again, it provides great opportunity for learning, but it also provides more predictability and ease of flow of the day. Spending time, I think this is a really big one, especially regardless if you have one child at home that you're caring for or multiple children that you're caring for. Trying to find those opportunities where you can have some one-on-one time with your child, whether that be in the home or out of the home. It doesn't have to be long. It could be 10 minutes reading a storybook. It could be going for a walk around your neighborhood, whatever you and your child enjoy doing together, but trying to carve out some one-to-one time with your child. And then the last one, the E of praise, is engagement. And this is just play with them. And I find, again, as I talk to over the years, as I've talked to many families that have come through the Geneva Center, of course, the focus is often on the therapy piece that they're getting, teaching their child communication skills, or reducing a particular unwanted behavior or something like that. And that's a big focus, and as it should be, as appropriate for your family and for your child. But sometimes I find in talking to families, we forget about that. Just stop and play. This is not a time where you're necessarily teaching your child something new, or teaching their colors or their letters or their numbers. This is really just getting down on the level of your child, playing with them. What do they want to do? Follow their lead, being silly, being goofy, whatever it is that they enjoy doing, whether indoor activities, outdoor activities, just simple play. And we know that the big job of kids, regardless autism or not, is play, and play serves a really important piece in their overall development. So those are some quick and easy tips and strategies that you guys can try at home. If you forget all of them, hopefully you just remember the acronym of praise. Praise is, as I said, I always try and repeat this over and over. It's super important. Praise, reinforcement, that motivation that kids need to continue trying. It lets them know what they're doing right and that they should be doing that again in the future. So super important, and also super important for us as parents, as caregivers, guardians, that we provide ourselves some praise. So you might, try and find some time to practice or creating routines. You've done a really good job the past couple of months carving out some small one-to-one time with your child. Don't forget to give yourself praise as well. Find a little reinforcer that's great for you. I know for me, coffee or chocolate. Sometimes I treat myself to a little walk to the coffee shop on my own, buy myself a little coffee, and that's my sort of reinforcement for, attempting some of these things at home with my kid. And doing a really good job there. We got to also reinforce ourselves, because I think we also need that motivation and encouragement to keep going, because sometimes parenting is really exciting and really fun, and sometimes it's really hard and really challenging. So we too as parents need that reinforcement. So those are some of my tips and strategies, real quick, real simple. If you have questions about any of them, please put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them or give further examples or answer any other questions that may or may not have to do with this particular topic. So thank you. I believe too that Rachel has put in the chat a link to Geneva Center's website if you're interested about funding more of our services. And I believe also the phone number to our intake team if you're interested in talking to a social worker about accessing some of our services at the Geneva Center. So thank you.